Welcome to the inaugural Student Athlete Mental Health Summit hosted by the Kevin Love Fund. The Kevin Love Fund has always been devoted to supporting student athletes' mental health, and we're rolling out several new lessons that specifically address challenges that student athletes face. We'll begin today with a panel with the lovely faces on the screen today, guys. Then we'll get to learn a new tool to support mental health from Dr. Lauren, who's here with us today. She is a sports psychologist, and we'll end today with a creative activity from one of our new lessons. My name is Kathiana Marcel, and I am a teaching artist with the Kevin Love Fund, guys, and I am so excited about today, y'all. Truly, anytime that we can create an intentional space to be honest, right, to give voice to our experiences, to witness one another, it's always sacred, right? And I think it's such a human thing for us to do. And so super thankful for all of our panelists today and everyone joining. Our goal for today truly is to rethink what it means to be an athlete and expanding that to include the importance of supporting our mental health. So often when we hear the word athlete, we might picture someone that doesn't experience difficult emotions or experiences. But today we're going to honor and recognize that mental health is just as important as physical health. Before we hop into our panel today, guys, I truly just want to pause and thank our partners who are joining us today on behalf of the Kevin Love Fund. We are beyond grateful for your continued support, believing in us, and being here today. Today, guys, we are so fortunate to have several professional and former student athletes here to really share their experiences with mental health. Now, I imagine many of you are familiar with our panelists that you see on our screen, but just not just for their accomplishments on the field or court, but also for their work advocating for mental health. So we'll go ahead and hop into some introductions. First, we'll start off with Kevin Love. Kevin is an NBA player for the Miami Heat. He is a five-time All-Star, Olympic gold medalist, and won an NBA championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016. Kevin is the founder of the Kevin Love Fund and first spoke out as a mental health advocate in his letter in the Players Tribune called Everyone is Going Through Something. The Kevin Love Fund has reached over 68,000 students across 16 countries with their free curriculum, normalizing mental health conversations in the classroom and on the court and field. Next, guys, we have Solomon Thomas. Solomon is an NFL player for the New York Jets and the co-founder of the defensive line. Drafted as the third overall pick in 2017 by the San Francisco 49ers, Solomon is also a two-time Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee and the 2023 Heisman Humanitarian Award recipient. Off the field, Solomon has dedicated his life to sharing his sister Ella's story, raising awareness and securing funds for mental health advocacy and suicide prevention. He participated in the announcement of the new 988 suicide prevention hotline and a national campaign and continues to advocate for mental health programming within the NFL. That's awesome. I'm trying to keep it together, but these bios are great, guys. Next, we have Victoria Garrick Brown. Victoria is a former USC volleyball player and the founder and CEO of the mental health nonprofit, The Hidden Opponent. Victoria was a four-year starter, Pac-12 champion, and finished her career with the top 5 most digs in program history. Victoria first began sharing her story of how she battled and overcame depression and anxiety as a student athlete in her 2012 TED Talk, The Hidden Opponent. Anne is a mental health advocate and podcast host where she's known for her unfiltered campaign, #RealPost. Last but definitely not least, guys, we have Naomi Girma. Naomi is an NWSL player for San Diego Wave FC and the U.S. Women's National Team. Naomi played collegiate soccer for Stanford University. She was the first overall pick of the 2022 NWSL draft, named Rookie of the Year in 2022, Defender of the Year in 2022 and 2023, and was the U.S. Soccer Female Player of the Year in 2023. In honor of her best friend and teammate, Katie Meyer, Naomi has led mental health initiatives during the World Cup and through the Create the Space retreat in collaboration with Common Goal. Thank you all so much again for being here, and truly for making time to talk to us today and be open and vulnerable. So again, welcome. Let's go ahead and hop into our panel conversation. Kevin, we'll start with you. You've often said that vulnerability is your superpower. What advice do you have for attendees today about the power of vulnerability?
Well, Kat, thank you for the intro. Everybody, thank you for being on this panel. It's amazing. I see everybody that isn't on the panel, Sarah, Ellie, Brianna, everybody that came here today. I thank you and appreciate you. Vulnerability for me, wow. I've always looked at it as if you live life out in the open, you can't use me against me. So few people are capable of learning from the experiences of others. So the fact that all of us here are able to put their stories out there, help understand what either themselves in the first person or somebody at arm's distance is dealing with on a daily basis, it allows us to feel human, and that next person, it makes them feel empowered to then share their story and empowers others to do the same. So I always feel like, especially seeing it now with the education curriculum that we have with the Kevin Love Fund, it's right there in front of you. These teenagers, these kids that are in high school, are in college, are allowing themselves to open up and be more vulnerable and therefore more comfortable in their own skin. So it transcends the area of sport. It transcends all walks of life, And I think that is incredibly important for people to hear, incredibly important for people to share. And everybody's story is singular. You can't put somebody into a box and say, hey, this is how I'm going to, deal with my mental health. This is how I'm going to treat this person in particular and not the next person. I think it's very important that we have these conversations so that people feel empowered to be vulnerable and use that as something that they can continue to grow with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kevin. So next, Solomon, we'll direct this question to you. You've dedicated your life to sharing your sister Ella's story and have worked to raise awareness about mental health and suicide prevention. Can you share about her story and when you decided it was time for you to seek help for yourself?
Definitely, yeah. No, first of all, it's an honor to be here with all these incredible people. The intros were amazing, and it's really cool. I saw some of my teammates log in and saw Quentin Williams here. Like, it means the world to see NFL players like tapping into mental health. So I'm thankful for that. But yeah, my sister, amazing, beautiful soul. Bright heart. She loved everyone. She loved people who didn't love her back. She loved people she just met. She loved people she shouldn't have loved, and she just gave out so much love. One of her best friends, Bennett Okacha, he would describe her as a human narrator because she could connect all groups of people, whether it was the jocks and the nerds, the band team and the dance team. When you're with my sister Ella, it felt like you were supposed to be there. She made everyone feel so validated, feel so real. She had this gift of just being present with you. Like if you're in the room with Ella with 1,000 people, but she was talking to you, you feel like you were the only person in the room with her. Ella struggled. She was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and she suffered some traumatic events. In college at Arkansas. She was sexually assaulted, and Ella just really struggled with that. But Ella was really vulnerable. Like if you ask Ella how she was doing, she would tell you, "Hey, I'm depressed. I'm anxious." Like, and she was ahead of her time with that. Like she was very real and honest. But that scared people. And it made Ella feel like she was a burden, and that was hard on Ella's mental health. And when we thought Ella was getting better, she was really getting worse. And unfortunately, in 2018, January 23rd, we lost Ella to suicide. And the hard thing about mental health is that when you're not in that world or a part of that world, or until you're affected by it, you don't understand how big it was. Like I was an athlete my whole life, like just grew up not knowing what mental health was. And then my sister dies by suicide. And now I have all these feelings that I've never had before. I'm depressed, I'm
Mm,
anxious, I'm mad at the world. I can't sleep. All these things, the grief is a wave that's taking me deep in the ocean and I don't know how to move forward. And I had to find a way. Well, I got to a really dark place. Like I didn't want to be here, didn't want to wake up, didn't go to sleep. And one day was approached by my general manager, Don Lynch, during the season, and he was like, "Hey, Solly, we got your back if you need help." And it lifted this weight off my shoulders. I felt like I didn't have to be this tough, strong gladiator man anymore. I felt like I could go get help. And I went to
mm,
therapy. I learned how to talk about my talk about my emotions. I learned how to feel grief. I learned that it's okay to be sad. I learned that I can be a man and cry, and that's okay, and I can still be tough. And I just learned how to cope with the death. I learned how to, instead of run away from my grief, bring my grief with me every day,
yeah.
and feel the ups and downs. And it changed my life. The way that I approach life now, just trying to be present, trying to be vulnerable with people. Just like Kevin said, like when you're vulnerable with someone, it brings that humanness, it breaks that human barrier to make you feel like you can be human. And like, oh, I'm not the only person in the world who's really hurting like this bad. Like, because when you're going through it, you feel like you're the only person in the world who could feel this pain or this mental trauma.
Mhm.
But then you feel like, oh no, they're going through it too. They're getting through it. We can get through this together. And I just think that's it's really important. But I'm honored to be a part of this field. I'm honored to be in this room with all these people, and I appreciate you guys having me and letting me tell my sister's story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you said that, it's changed you, right?
Mhm.
And truly the way that you've championed your sister's story and didn't make it let you shrink is just like completely commendable. So thank you so much for your commitment to this and being present to it. It's helping us breathe,
Yeah,
right? When we get to share and talk, like we get to breathe and we get to actually be present and live our lives. And so thank you so much for sharing, Solomon.
appreciate you.
So the next question that we have is for Victoria. Victoria, you first began sharing your story of battling depression and anxiety as a student athlete in your 2017 TED Talk. Can you share about the pressure and anxiety you were feeling on and off the court, and how it was impacting your mental health?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I'm so honored to be here with all of you on this panel. It's so important to have athletes from all walks of life part of this conversation, and really grateful to everyone tuning in who wants to kind of hear these stories and try to make an impact in their community. I think that's what's really important. Um, I had not struggled significantly with mental health until I became a Division I athlete. And it was just this perfect mix of we were the #1 team in the country. I was a freshman who was starting, and it was just my dream come true, but also incredibly overwhelming at the same time. And I think as we were winning every game and we had this undefeated record and things got more intense, I started to develop a lot more fear than I used to have. What if I make a mistake today? What if I get benched? What if I'm the reason we lose? What if I let down the seniors? And I started to spiral in a way that I never had before. And I didn't know why I was like unable to sleep at night and my hands were shaking before the games. And I felt like I was on the verge of tears in the locker room. Now I look back and that is performance anxiety. But at the time, I was just like, I'm not good enough. I need to listen to another motivational video. I need to just like shove this down because the best don't rest. I pulled on all the sports mantras and quotes that I thought the great athletes did, and basically told myself like I wasn't allowed to have doubt and I wasn't allowed to even let anyone know what I was feeling.
Mm,
So the performance anxiety my whole freshman year was something that I felt ashamed about. And I felt like if people know, they're going to think I'm not good enough. And my teammates won't trust me and my coach won't want to play me.
mm,
So I just tried to bury that and suppress it. And when we bury really big, powerful emotions, they don't go anywhere. They stay in you. And if anything, they really try to find their way out. And I felt like my performance anxiety, you know, it shifted and it eventually became this just massive cloud. And it was like my sophomore year, I had spent so much time worrying and so much time panicked and so much time thinking that now I just was like numb and I didn't have a lot that really motivated me. I felt like I was kind of going through the motions and doing the bare minimum to get by, but I was really depressed.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of how the pressure and the intensity of the environment affected my mental health. And then it was that sophomore year I started seriously going to therapy because I really realized I don't know how to do this myself. And I'm honestly getting afraid of my own thoughts. Like I didn't recognize who I was. So that was the catalyst that led me to seeking help. And then once that help was actually impacting my life and I realized how amazing it was, I started to think, why didn't I know about this as a freshman? Why don't we talk about this? I see the same struggles in my teammates. And that's what really led to my advocacy work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. That's like huge. And I think, just the narratives, the short bits that you shared, so many of us could connect with. Like, oh yeah, those thoughts. Oh, I can't, I'm not allowed, or we can't do like all of those little like those pieces. I think so many of us in this room, everyone just kind of listening to you could connect to it. So thank you for giving voice to that. And thank you guys so much for in the chat. I know you guys are sending messages in the chat. Continue to share those thoughts. We really appreciate it. So the next question is for Naomi. Naomi, you were best friends and teammates with Katie Meyer. You dedicated your first World Cup to Katie and launched the mental health initiative Create the Space in her memory. Can you speak more about what you've learned throughout this journey, and why you're encouraged to take action or why others should take actions in their teams and communities?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm going to echo what everyone said. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor, and thank you, everyone listening. So yeah, like you said, I lost my best friend, Katie, 2 years ago, and that was a very, you know, heartbreaking experience, and it came at the very beginning of my pro career. It was like probably a month in, and um, having gone through that, I think it just made me reflect and look around, like, okay, what are the resources I have in this league, and what what can I lean on to help me through this time? And I realized there wasn't that much available to me, and I think diving into that and looking around at what are pro athletes, what are student athletes, what are youth athletes, um, having as resources, just made me realize there needs to be some shift. And for me, I focused on soccer in my community, and going into that World Cup, I think one of the things I learned having lost Katie is a lot of times you have to hold multiple emotions at once, and especially when you're in the sports world and you're expected to perform, and at the same time you might be grieving, or you might be going through something in a relationship, or something else might be going on. You really need to be able to hold multiple things. And going into the World Cup, it was very important for me to really put out that I was holding multiple things at once, and that was okay. And even though I was going into the biggest tournament of my life, that didn't mean that I wasn't still grieving my best friend. I wasn't still thinking about her. I wasn't still going to honor her in any way that I could. And that was just something that really came to light going into the tournament. And I think a lot of times when you're a high performing, high functioning person, people think that you can just push everything down and you can just pretend like everything's okay for a month and get through a tournament. And I quickly realized in the very beginning of my season that that wasn't realistic, and that wasn't being true to myself. That wasn't being true to my friend, my family, or anyone. So that was how Create the Space was born. And it was really just me bringing together a group of NWSL athletes and youth coaches, and us just having and being able to hold space where, like Kevin said, we could be vulnerable and just lead by example within the league. And something that I realized was, sometimes even if you don't have the resource, you don't have mental health coach, whatever it is, just being a good teammate can be that support and that example of vulnerability that we need. And I think my takeaway from that was, why can't I be that example within my own team, or within my own community, or within my family, even of showing how vulnerability and showing up for others can be so impactful. And just having that space and allowing others to feel like they can do the same can really change their lives and change the way they feel about themselves or any situation that they're in.
For sure, absolutely. Naomi, you are doing brave work. I was hearing you share, and I'm like, she's brave. And so just you're doing such important work. And thank you for just saying yes to it and just following what it is to what came up in you and honoring yourself and your community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so the next question we have is for Kevin and Solomon. It's kind of a two-part question, so you guys can approach it however you'd like. But one hurdle athletes face is how much of their identity tends to be connected to their sport. Kevin and Solomon, can you speak to building your identity outside of your sport, and creating spaces or hobbies that are not attached to your identity as an athlete? That's question, or that's the part one. Part two is how has this helped you with your perspective of self and your self-esteem that often is tied to sports performance for most athletes?
Well, I'll try to tie that all up into one answer, but
Mhm.
for me, Kat, and for everyone here, I feel like um, it's certainly been a struggle for me, and still is something that I work on in therapy, is trying to uh, throughout my career create an identity outside the world of sport. I mean, I came in uh, to the league at 19 years old. I was handed a basketball at 3 or 4 years old by my father, who played in the NBA. And it was kind of all that I've known and still is to this point within my life. But I think the work within the mental health space specifically has really helped me find and define my purpose outside the vehicle of sport. And since I take a lot of notes, and since Solomon is also going to be on this answer, I just wrote down, like, for example, like, Solomon, your story is amazing. Like, we all see you. I think that this has allowed you and the collective us to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And we all want to be on the winning side of history, because I think that this collective community inspires a lot of people and creates hope and creates a place for which each and every one of us has said, a space for vulnerability and empowerment. And I always feel like each man and each woman is my superior, in that I can learn from them. So I think that has allowed me to find an identity outside of just sport, and I think that's giving me a lot of freedom to explore different spaces, to create things within the mental health space, which is just kind of like opened me up and bled into so many other different things. I go back to our education curriculum, and we discuss so many mediums throughout, whether it be photography, whether it be creative writing, whether it be poetry, uh, Spider-Man now, it's the hero within, right? Or the superhero within. And, kids being able to not only, sometimes you don't have the language to be able to express yourself at a certain level. I certainly didn't when I was that age. And being, not unlike Solomon as well, and all of us here being in such for us, a hyper masculine sport where it wasn't looked at as okay to share your story at that level or at that capacity. But I think it's that hope that creates fuel for our mental engine to be able to branch out and to try new things. And I think it's a beautiful thing in that way, to be able to express yourself in different ways, not just within the sport that we play, but to find balance throughout our lives in trying to find things that are going to help heal us and just get us away from the everyday grind of what we do. But again, it's not who we are, it's what we do. And I think over time you tend to learn and lean on different things in order to problem solve outside of the sport that you play.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kev.
Yeah, no, I mean, great answer, Kevin. Just real quick, Naomi, I just want to say I'm proud of you for the work you do. 2 years ago is really fresh. I know Katie's really proud of you, and I just want to give you your flowers because being young, being in the professional sports, this is not easy work. So I just want to, before I answer, I want to let you know that. But yeah, I think it's really important because like we're athletes, so we've been doing this since we're 3, 4, 5 years old. And when you get in the public eye, you're only looked at as a football player, or Kevin Love, the basketball player, or Naomi, the soccer player, Victoria, the volleyball player. Like so, and you're stuck in that, and you feel stuck in that. And to be at the top where we get, you have to have that like switch where it is like all football, all basketball, like for a while. But then like you realize that, oh shoot, like you get older and you're like, okay, who am I like without this? Because it's like at some
Mm,
point it's gonna end. And it's scary. It brings anxiety. It brings like worry, like what am I gonna do? Like who am I really? But I think that's why it's so important to realize that we're human beings first. Like we are sons, we are daughters, we are brothers, we are sisters, we are wives, husbands. That's the first thing to realize. And like I'll give an example. So like last year I was struggling during the beginning of the season. I really was stressed out, would go home and I would just stress about football, thinking about the plays I didn't make well, what I did wrong, what I did right, like just in my head. And I was getting like really my mental health was declining. And I was like, I have to find a way to get out of this, get out of this space. So I started making sourdough bread during the season and it really helped me to be out of my football player mentality and be a human being. And I just found it really healing. And then I realized, okay, and I started playing better too. So I was like, okay, if I invest in Solomon the person, I'm getting better as Solomon the football player.
mm,
So if I put myself as Solomon the human first and the athlete here and still work, you know, still like do the professional athlete Solomon, but I will get better and also be healthier and be more connected. So connected with the things I loved as a kid. Theater, like being big in New York, going out to all the shows, musicals, all that kind of stuff. You know, like having these conversations in the locker room with my teammates about therapy, about being human, about being brothers, and about like just being real people instead of just being like this masculine football player who has to be tough or has to like think a certain way or walk a certain way or look a certain way. Like you can be individual yourself and invest in that, and then you'll be more of the amazing player you are. I just really believe that. So I believe it's important to really find out who you are, ask who you are, because if you live every day based on the football player you are, and like, okay, I had a good day, I had a bad day, I had a good, it's exhausting. You can't live like that. So you have to
yeah.
find a way to live like every day is just a flat line. Like I'm gonna be peaceful. I'm gonna come up and I'm gonna be the best Solomon I can be every day and invest in whatever I can to make myself a better person. And I think that helps us find our identity and excel at our sport as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think the both of you just gave such great language to that. Thank you so much. So this next question is for you, Victoria. Many student athletes have expressed struggles they face with body image issues. As you know, bodies can change and transform when training and going through different seasons of our sport. And many athletes find themselves comparing their bodies to other athletes or even to themselves. But Victoria, you've been a major spokesperson about body image with your unfiltered campaign called #RealPost, which I think is super dope. But can you share a bit about the challenges you face with body image and your journey accepting that your body changes as an athlete, even after you retire?
Definitely. So I struggled with my body image and food, ever since I was like 12 years old and someone made a comment to me and I internalized it. And then from that point on, was obsessed with the scale and was obsessed with how many calories I was eating. And, you know, I think that by the time I got to college and you have, you're like Olympic lifting with these strength coaches and you're having like 6 meals a day, like a lot of shakes, like you're supposed to bulk up and get strong. But then I have that voice in my head from, high school telling me I still need to fit into my jeans I packed. And I don't want to go home for Thanksgiving and have people look at my body differently. And I felt like I just had this body type I was supposed to have as just a girl, like, and be really skinny, like, the way you see in the magazines or the fashion shows. But then
Yeah.
I'm looking at my teammates and I'm thinking about what it takes to be a champion and to be my strongest, best player. And that's a stronger, more muscular, just bigger girl. And so that, like, those two concepts were really hard for me to navigate. And I ended up developing an eating disorder during my time as an athlete, just this cycle of not fueling myself enough because I thought I needed to lose weight. And then, of course, being really hungry and also depressed and finding comfort in food at the end of the day. So that was kind of the cycle I began. And I would say it wasn't until I started to really think about how I had been viewing my body as this like item, right? This ornament. It's this object to be looked at on Instagram pictures. Like it's our bodies as women sometimes are like almost viewed so much as an object that you separate like the head and the brain and you just look at the body. And then I realized, but this is the body that's allowing me to do these amazing things on the court, to play this position I've always dreamed of playing, to be on this team I've always dreamed of being on. And one of my favorite quotes when talking about female body image in athletics is your body's not an ornament, it's an instrument. And I had to like get in my body and connect to what it was allowing me to do. And instead of being so like ashamed or resentful for gaining muscle, I ended up getting to a place where I was really proud of it. And I prided myself on grabbing the heavier weights and like having this muscular body that was allowing me to be one of the few girls on this team. So, it took a lot. I'd say like the reframing it was really helpful for me. I ended up being able to really heal my relationship with food through a practice called intuitive eating. A lot of us are told what to eat and when to eat it, but we don't actually ask our bodies, how do I want to feel when I go into this game? Do I want to feel like full and energized, but maybe I have like a half a bar at halftime? Do I want to feel hungry and I play better hungry and I love my post-game meal? It's different for everyone. But I finally started getting in touch with myself and saying, like, how do I want to feel? What's my favorite way to fuel? What's the food that I enjoy eating instead of following, a calorie count plan or a diet plan. So, I mean, there's so much I could say, but if anyone out there is struggling with body image or food, my heart goes out to you. I know it's all consuming, but when you seek the resources and you seek the help, which I know is something all of us are promoting today, is to reach out to those in your life, there is a path forward and a path to a place that's much more peaceful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Victoria. You mentioned there's so many bits there. We can honestly be on this panel for a long time. There's just so like all of you guys are sharing so much like important information. I wish we had so much more time. But thank you for sharing that, Victoria. So the next question is for you, Naomi. Another common topic we've heard about from our athlete community is navigating injury, right? Naomi, you've mentioned in your letter in the Players Tribune that during your junior year at Stanford, you faced an athlete's nightmare, a torn ACL. And you described how your whole routine and identity were taken away. Can you speak more about the challenges you face mentally, emotionally, and of course, physically, navigating your injury?
Yeah, for sure. Tearing an ACL isn't fun, if anyone's experienced it, but I think I can relate to what Kevin and Solomon were saying just about identity and being a student athlete. It felt like half of my identity was just ripped away in one instant, and it felt like everything was ending. School was going to be terrible. It was during COVID. There was just a lot going on, and I really felt like there was this hard stop on, the thing that I loved most in life and the thing that I based all of my identity in, especially at school, being with my team all the time, all these things. And I think when you go through a major injury, it can feel so isolating. You're not around the team as much, you don't feel as connected to the group. And it's just really hard mentally, physically, emotionally, like you said. And I think for me, that was the first time I realized soccer wasn't going to be forever and could be taken away at any time. And I couldn't put my happiness, my joy, my future, everything in it. And I needed to find stuff outside of it. And for me, that meant finding out what Naomi liked as a person. I didn't get into sourdough bread, but I did not have a kitchen, but I just started exploring other things at school. I joined a fellowship program. I really just leaned into other communities on campus, and I learned that there was a lot of joy to find there, and there was a lot of support there, and I could actually relate to a lot of people there too. I almost felt like as a student athlete, like only student athletes would understand like my life, what I was doing, and I realized that there was a lot outside of that, and everyone has other things going on. Everyone has other passions, and it was really cool to like tap into that side of myself. And um, I think it was also just me realizing like, oh, like it's actually incredible that my body is healing itself and forming a new ACL in 9 months' time, and just giving myself grace and celebrating the little moments throughout that recovery. And I think it can be so hard because you want it to go perfectly. It's already a long rehab, and you don't want to miss any more time than you're already missing. And I think for me, it was really important to just give myself grace. And if one day I felt better, one day I felt worse, I couldn't base my whole life or week off of that. I just kind of had to stay steady, like Solomon was saying, and really find other things. And I think now it really just taught me how important it is to show up for other people in those moments. I wrote about how Katie showed up when I was doing like my first jog on the Alter G, and it like meant the world to me. And I think now as a teammate, I just really can use that to try to help other people, and just to realize like you can't do anything to help them, you can't heal them, you're not giving them treatment, you're not writing their exercises, but just being their friend and being there can make the biggest difference, and can help someone going through a major injury like an ACL, or anything that makes them step away from the game for a long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. And really just the idea that, we're more than our sport, right? Our value
Yeah.
isn't wavered. Our value is consistent. And so thank you so much for sharing that. Guys, very last thing, we are over time. Very last thing, if you guys had to just give one bit of advice to someone who might be struggling right now, who are listening, what would you share? We'll start with you, Victoria.
Oh, I was hoping, please choose one person. Think of something good, which is iconic, and I love that story. So thank you for sharing. It made me think about a time a sports psychologist said to me, if you don't develop an identity outside of sport, it will feel like your entire life is at stake when you step up to the line. And I really thought about that, and it's true. If you tell yourself like winning is everything, if I'm not an athlete, I don't know who I am. When you play, you're going to play with this weight on your shoulder because you don't have this backup plan. And I think athletes are always told it's not if you win, it's when you win, right? Like it's always plan A. I think it's so healthy to have plan B. I think it's so healthy to love what you're learning in school, to feel purpose in your friend group, to consider what you might do if you don't make it as an athlete. I don't think that's a losing mentality. I think it's a healthy mindset, and I think it's where the best players are headed. I feel like we even see watching just some of the golf tournaments recently. I think we're seeing some of the best PGA golfers like they have their families and their lives, and it's so different than like the Tiger era when he came up and it was golf or nothing. So it's cool to see that changing in the space. And I guess my advice would be it's okay to have plan B, and in fact that will probably make you play better in your sport.
Thank you so much. How about Naomi? We'll go with you next.
I would say, so I had a mentor tell me in college, run your own race. And it's just this quote that has like stood out to me ever since then. And it was pretty much just like, don't compare yourself to others. And I think when you're coming up as an athlete, you see maybe someone's taller than you, maybe someone's stronger than you, maybe someone's made a national team before you, and it can feel like you're behind, and like others are winning in the race of sport. And I think hearing that advice, run your own race, just focus on yourself, try to get better every day, compare yourself to the best version of yourself and just try to better that. That really stood out to me, and just not basing my success based off comparing it to where others are. And if I'm doing better than them, then I'm winning or I'm the best or whatever it is. I think just as an athlete, focusing on yourself and focusing on your own journey and realizing that wherever you're at is where you're meant to be.
Absolutely. Thank you, Naomi. Let's go, Solomon.
Yeah, amazing advice from both of you. I would say, just because I think it's so important, I said it earlier, I think it's say like it's okay to not be okay. Like we really live in this world where social media driven world, everything's a highlight, everything's some success. And that's not what life is. Life is not about just all the great, amazing things that you do. Life is about the hardships, the ups and downs. It's about the grief. It's about feeling like sadness, feeling anger. And I learned that through my own journey. Like when I was really able to feel sadness and be okay being sad, I was able to reach a new level of joy. I was able to be present in that and see like, hey, like these sad moments, like it's why I love the movie Inside Out, because it's so important, because it teaches us that like sadness is such an important I have so many core memories that are sad, and like that is good. Like, so I just think it's important to realize that, hey, like it's okay to be anxious, it's okay to be depressed. These are normal emotions of the human experience, and you're not crazy for feeling them in any way. So feel them, honor your emotions, honor your feelings, because that's how you truly get to know yourself and why you're feeling it, and be okay feeling it and find peace within it. So just understand that life is not about the social media and all the highlights. Life is about all the moments that you can feel and experience, and honor that and seek those out, and you're not crazy for feeling your feelings.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Solomon. And Kevin, we'll end with you.
For me, listen, I hear all of you. I see all of you. All of your stories are amazing and unique in themselves. I think that one thing I would say is that, your struggles are valid and that you aren't alone, right? Like I can hear Naomi saying, your dreams don't have deadlines. And Victoria, you speaking about how, there always is more out there to do. Having a second option is okay. Your identity isn't wrapped up solely in one thing. And Solomon talking about that there's a greater community out there, right? Naomi, you spoke about people feeling isolated, whether it be an injury or feeling these deep feelings within themselves. And I think allowing yourself, we keep using that word vulnerability, but allowing yourself to just be human, to feel all these things deeply is okay. And I love that all of us just showing up and being here today is allowing us to break barriers, to continue to eliminate the stigma. For athletes, we're looked at as superheroes, as people that are high achievers, and in some ways, get beaten up, broken down, but we're always going to bounce back. And in some cases, sure, that is true, but it's allowing us to educate others, to provide resources. And I think that is the most important thing, to just understand that we're all dealing with something internally. We're all going through something that others cannot see. But I think that we're allowing for hope and allowing for people to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And for us showing up here today, I just commend all of you and see all of you. And again, understand that all of your struggles and everything you guys are feeling, both good and bad, are valid. And I truly believe that we're all in this together. And just speaking about it and having an open dialogue is allowing us all to heal a little bit and just, continue to get better every single day. And any progress is forward progress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll end with that. Kevin, thank you so much. Solomon, Naomi, Victoria, you guys are incredible. Truly, the work that you're doing, thank you for being here today. It's invaluable, right? It's invaluable. And so we appreciate your words. To everyone in our room today, thank you, thank you, thank you,